Alright, I grabbed a drum snippet from some drum tracks that I recorded in my fireplace room. And it's a very small room, but it's got hardwood floors, and it takes processing well, I would say. So it's not too exciting right now because I have no processing on it. But then I'm going to process the tracks. And I'm going to use all outboard gear in the console. I'm not even going to use any plugins, not even reverb. I'm going to use the PCM 60. So let's go over the tracks first. Kick in, kick out, snare top, snare bottom, tom, floor tom, overhead left and right, hi-hat, mono room, stereo overheads. All these tracks are off. I have an SVX 90, which we're not going to be using. The drum bus, which we will be using, but I have it off right now because we're not... First, I want you to hear the tracks with no processing at all, and then the PCM 60. We'll leave that off too. So right now, we're going to hear the raw, naked tracks, exactly how they were recorded. Now, I do have levels set on my faders, and in the box I trim a little bit on the in the box faders in Pro Tools. Then I spread it across my board, and I do panning in the box and on my console. I meant to just throw on a couple compressors and tweak it a little bit and show you the difference, but I added a ton of stuff. I just, I start having fun with this stuff, and I just love it all, and I just start patching in more and more. I went way over the top. But with that being said, I'm going to play the full drum mix for you so you can hear the difference between the dry and the full, and then I'll break down what I did, because you might not want to sit through the whole thing. It's a lot. So let me print the direct feed for you so you could hear it, and then I'll go through what I did. Okay, so now we are going to go over the outboard. And I'll show you what I did here. Let me show you the tracks. It'll be easier if I show you what I did not process. I did not process the kick out or the snare bottom. I did not process the tom or the floor tom or the hi-hats. I did do the kick in, the snare top, the overhead left and right, the mono room, and the stereo room. So let's go through the outboard. The kick in, I have this Audioscape 1176. This is basically their version of an F-Rev. I love it. The snare top, I have the Audioscape 1176. And that's all. This is on the insert of the channel strip, so if I adjust the fader, it does not affect how hard the compressor is being hit. Now, for the stereo overhead, I have the Chandler Germaniums, and I'm doing some light compression, maybe about 4 dB. I have it on Zener Hard, and it has a wet-dry parallel function on these. I have these stereo linked right now, and I'm more towards dry than wet, but I just dial it in accordingly to what I thought sounded good. So that is the stereo overhead. The stereo room is the Empirical Labs Fatso, and I'm doing a couple dB of compression, and got some warmth going on there. The drum bus, I know I use it all the time, but there's a reason why I do, is the API 2500. And then the sort of whole mix bus strapped on the console, I do have the Allen Smart C2 and the Alicia X filter, just doing a couple dB of gain reduction. And then last but not least, I have the mono drum room mic getting dirtied up by this Dynamite Valley people. You could hardly hear that, it's just tucked under the mix a little bit. I always do something different in mixes. So what I did was I bust out of the console, hit the Pultec style EQs, kick and snare, and I'm tucking them in here. Then I felt like the snare, and I do this in songs, is I'll augs out or bust out of my console to something cool, put it on a different track, and during the song goose it up. I felt like the snare could have been a little bit more nasty in certain parts. And I'm not writing it for this because this is just a print. But what I did was, on an echo send, I am hitting the Dolby A-Type 361. And this is a modified card, and they're really easy to do. And these things are cheap, but they sound great, and they're built well. They're heavy, very heavy. Got transformers in and everything. So I have an auxiliary set up on the console coming out. The snare is coming out, hitting this 361, and I'm returning it to channel 22. Now, as I'm returning that to channel 22, I am adding more PCM60 to this track. And you could hear when I goose that up, it adds like a splash. And what this does is, it says modified here. These were normally meant for noise reduction, but if you modified the cards, which is literally only snipping 2 resistors on it, what it does is it takes the top end and it adds like a little cool distortion to it, and it brightens things up. I use these on snare and vocals. Okay, so now I'm going to solo the kick and snare, and I'm going to take out and then engage the EQP and Dolby 361 so we can sort of hear what they're doing. So here we go.